morning. It's Dr. Mary Braun Bates, and it is a beautiful fall morning that has that kind of ambiguous feel. It feels like it could be a spring morning as well. I thought we would watch the sun creep down the trees, and at the end of the video, you won't see the sun move at all during the video, but then at the end of the video, if you go back and look, you'll see the sun has moved down from where it started. And it's a good metaphor for cognition in people with dementia. You'll see. So this is not personal medical advice, nor is this the opinion of my employers. And I'm sorry, I forgot to bring my earphone, my microphone out with me this morning. And I don't want to go back in because I will miss this effect if I go back in. So I hope you can understand what I'm saying. I have been putting off this video, I noticed, like not on purpose, but I noticed that there's always a reason I can't do it. And I think that's also a good metaphor, because the topic of the video is driving and dementia. And driving is such a difficult topic for families, of course, and for doctors. We don't want to talk about it because especially here in, rural New Hampshire, if you can't drive, it's really difficult to live by yourself. So, but on the other hand, if you drive and, you're behind a 2-ton killing machine, and maybe you're not thinking very well. So it is such a difficult problem. So here's my approach to driving with some thoughts that, families can use. So I don't ever see someone drive because there's no driving in my exam rooms. If you're in a car in my exam room, something has gone seriously wrong. I certainly can tell people, what I'm seeing in here indicates to me that you should not be driving. But that's sort of not really that strong. What I do tell people, this is really something the families have to take the lead on. And I do tell people, you need to have, your son, your daughter, your grandson, whatever, sit beside you in the car and drive with you fairly frequently. And if they tell you that they don't think you're safe, you have to listen to them. And that's tough, it's tough, and people don't believe it and don't want to hear it. And once you start having some problems with your cognition, it becomes a problem. What I tell people, early on, I tell people and hope that they'll get the idea and it'll become embedded in their brain. And then it'll be easier when the time does come to stop driving. What I tell people is, if you were to drive and something bad happened to you, and you had an accident and something bad happened to you, that would be sad. We would miss you. But if you were to drive and have an accident and kill someone else, that would ruin the rest of your life. And people whose brains are working well say, oh, you're right, I need to really think about that. And I hope if I repeat that often enough that they continue thinking about it, and when the time comes that they really should stop driving, they're already kind of teed up for that. I don't know. Sometimes it does seem to work. If you don't start that early enough, people will say, when you say that to them, oh, I would never have a car accident. I would never hurt anyone else. And those are the people who you know that their cognition is not very good. People will also sometimes say to me, and I'm going to tell you this just because I think it's really cute. People will sometimes say, but I drove, like I had a guy, this is a long time ago, but I had a guy who said, I drove a Jeep all over Europe, and you shouldn't be, there's no way you can tell me I can't drive. And well, actually, there's no way you should have been driving. But he did eventually stop driving. Actually, he did stop driving soon after he told me that. He started taking a cab, which was good. So there's that. Then when people get, people start getting a little bit more confused and they start losing their sense of time, you can do things like, oh, the car's not working, I had to take it to the shop. And it can always be every day. You can say, "Oh, I took the car to the shop yesterday. Don't you remember, Graham?" And it can always be yesterday that you took the car to the shop. And people will sometimes lose their sense of time so severely that they won't remember that it was actually a month ago. Golly, they've been fixing that car for a long time, haven't they? Yeah, I know. They said they were going to get the part next week. They said, because of the supply chain problems, nobody can get parts from Taiwan these days. So they're working on it. They have to fix it by hand, whatever. Um, so that can be helpful. You can hide the keys. Oh, Graham, did you misplace your keys again? That's a little meaner, of course. To blame the person, who but sometimes that really is the case. Sometimes people really do misplace their keys, and they can be misplaced for a long time. Especially if you find the keys someplace where they really don't belong, you can just simply whisk them out. So anyway, now look at how far the light has come down, and I betcha you didn't notice it coming down as it was coming down. And that is the way memory works with people. So when you start, which is why it's important to really work on these things a little bit at a time, constantly, not constantly, but over a very long period of time. So to start talking about driving, the first time it crosses your mind, does Graham not remember some things? The first time that crosses your mind, start talking with your loved one about it. I'm a little bit concerned about your memory, or I'm concerned about our neighbor Sally's memory, and I hope that never happens to you, that you shouldn't be driving, Graham, or whatever. So you got to be creative, and you don't want to hurt people's feelings, and you don't want to, and that is the thing, of course. These are people who have been the adults, the unassailable adults that you've admired most of your life. And now, as they lose their cognition, they are no longer, in some ways, able to do that. And in some ways, they do things that the older, previous version of themselves would just have found reprehensible. And that is difficult, so difficult for us. Well, I include myself currently in the us, but that is so difficult for the people who have their memory intact. But for the most part, it's not difficult for the people who are losing their memory. And that really is the thing to remember about dementia, I think, is that the person with dementia often, usually, almost always, seems to be unaware of it. And they're not suffering in the same way as you are. So, to some extent, your suffering can mitigate theirs. Have a lovely day on this ambiguous fall day that feels like spring.